Hey guys, Kobani here with another tutorial. This is a follow-up tutorial on the previous material study I did. Um, we created a cobblestone material, but I did not fully finish it in that video because that video was more of a general tutorial on Substance Designer to help other people out too. You can go and watch that video too if you want to learn some stuff, I guess, if you feel like you need to learn more about Substance Designer. In that one, I go more into details about like why I use some notes and everything. So I just wanted to make a follow-up video with the material breakdown. I'm testing out both systems, whether I should record while creating material or record after I create the material. But I feel like the breakdowns will be faster since I'll not be experimenting during those times. This is the reference I used. I just went to textures.com, went to 3D scans, and then just sort of picked one of the references. Their material is different because instead of having mud, they have like concrete or stone, or you can make any material you want. I chose to make a mud because I found it more interesting. The reason I use the scan textures is because you can see the albedo and displacements and stuff, so you can use those ones as reference to gauge how your stuff should look like. And here's my renders that I did of the final product. The roughness is different because mine is muddy and I wanted it to be wet. And there's the air width on a sphere, I guess. I did this one in iRay. I wanted to test out iRay's render, and I did this in Mamaset. But let's go. Just wanted to show you guys that. And this, if you look at my library, my Explorer, you'll see there's two materials there. Don't worry about that one. That's because I plan on recording a video for this one, but this one will be a breakdown too. Okay, so if you look at our material in the texture view, this is how we look right now. And just to be clear, right, I mean 1K. So this is how it looks in 1K. And before I start like going from the beginning, I'll show some and what I did. So if I double click on the map area, I'll show you like some exposed parameters I put. I exposed some parameters, and also another disclaimer, I created this material like almost a week ago, so I kind of might have forgotten some parts of it, so I'll have to like retrace my steps a little bit because I've worked on other stuff in between. But basically I know I exposed some parameters and I named them so that I will know. So let's say rock switch. I would say that would be, oh wait, whoops, I tweaked the wrong. Okay, the fact that I put on 0.5 might be the, oh yeah, this was, I made it so that you could turn off the rock when you put it on 0, and basically you only get the mod, and on 0.5 is the rocks. And I think I clamped that 0.5. Yeah, you can't go above 0.5 because it actually starts looking bad when you go above 0.5. That's because of how I use the switch. I'll show you guys how I created a switch. And no way, I closed that. Okay, so there's rock switch, and actually let me put on preview mode. If you click on this button, it shows your exposed parameters as how they'll look if it was in, like, let's say substance painter. So I put another thing, rock size, and I put amount. Oh yeah, this was for the X and Y values for the first tile node. So basically you could tweak them and change your rocks, like how many you have there. Although if you go too high, you start losing too much. And also you can also go lower. That's because I didn't expose more parameters in that node. If I had exposed more parameters, you could have made your rock smaller but then increase the amount. I didn't expose the amount. I think I set it up to add the amount, but I just didn't do it because I forgot. Either I forgot or I got lazy. Yeah, but exposing parameters is easy. So let's start from the beginning. I set this one up so that I can remember how I set it up. I mean how I set it up, and also in case somebody's looking at it, they can navigate a little bit easier. Firstly, let's show the maps. This is the base color. This is the normal. If it will load, then thank you. This is the normal. This is the roughness. Metallic has nothing, and this is the ambient occlusion. if you can see, you'll notice that my ambient occlusion, I went for more of a dynamic ambient occlusion. This isn't a wise move. This was me testing stuff out. Usually ambient occlusion is you don't want too much darkness like this or something, but it depends on how you're going for it. I was testing stuff out, that's why I did it like that. And this is the height map. The height map you can tweak at the end anytime, so I put a histogram range here so that I can tweak the values, the value range. But let's go. So we start with the large rocks. Okay, let's zoom into this one. I started with a tile sampler, and I'll try and scroll slowly in case you want to follow the points. I mean the numbers I used, but that's why I created the first tutorial, so it goes more into depth. Because the first tutorial is slower and this one is more of a breakdown, so you might not be able to get everything from this video. So I created a tile sampler, and what we focused on was the pattern, which is just to make sure it's on square, and that's the default. You can also use tile random for this one, by the way. The only reason I use tile sampler is because I just feel more comfortable with it, and also I get more options, but I don't think those options were necessary in this one. I might be wrong, but I put the pattern on the default. I left it on the default basically. Size, I tweaked it a little bit, because if I tweak the X size right now, as you can see, it changes the rock's shapes, but that's because you go further. And also I'll say don't stay too long on the tile sampler, because this point right here is the most important. So you basically come to this point and then you go back to your tile sampler and start tweaking it to get and then you have a reference point for how your rocks will look like. I mean your stones will look like. So I just get a general shape. So basically the shapes you are looking for is this. You want rectangles, but they'll be rotated and also randomly placed. So the way we get that is by using the size bars, the size random, scale. You can also play with scale. I've exposed this one because when you increase your X and Y amounts, obviously as you could see, I was losing some stones, but that was because I was making them smaller, and some of them were just losing their height. So I should have added scale so I can also scale them up. But basically, to expose parameters for anybody, there's multiple ways. I don't go into all of them, but basically if you click on this symbol on the parameter, you get this right here and expose, and basically just expose, but then you can name it by clicking new, and then you rename it and whatever, and you can put them into groups and stuff, but I don't go into that right now. And yeah, so basically we need a size and position. The position is what I also used to get the variety in the placements. But as I said earlier, you guys are looking at me going through this step by step, but when I was actually working on them, I went ahead and then came back to it. So yeah, I think that's what I use. Oh, and also I use a rotation. I took rotation random to 1. You don't have to put it on 1. I just put it on 1 because that's what worked for me. And another important one is this one, is the color. Make sure blending mode is on max. I think it's on max on default. Sometimes it's not. For some of the nodes at least. Like this one is right here. Color random is very important because it gives the color the shapes different colors, and you need that for the distance node to work properly. If you put it on white, the distance node doesn't work. So basically, if you put them in a uniform color, it won't work. So you need a color random, and I didn't put it at 1 because the further you go, the more range of values you get, and then you start getting some blacks where they'll be blending in with the background too much, which might distort the edge detect. When you get to your edge detect and you start seeing like little dots on your shapes, I'll say come back and tweak the global opacity and turn it down, and that should get rid of those little dots. So basically, after you work with your tile sampler and you feel comfortable with the shapes that you have, you go ahead and plug it into a histogram scan and put a position on 1. What that does is that it gets rid of the color variation in the tile sampler, and then you move on. You plug the histogram scan into a mask input of the distance node, and you plug this the tile sampler into the source input. I hope I said histogram scanning to the mask input. I might have flipped it, but yeah. And now this is where we get one of the most important nodes for this system. This system can be used to create a lot of things like cracks and everything. So if I inverted the edge detect, I could turn this into cracks. But the scale will be different, obviously. But basically we get this right here. The reason my values are so dark over here is because I turned down the global opacity. Like if I turn up my global opacity, you might see the issue I was talking about in the edge detect. Yeah, where you start seeing holes on some of your shapes and it'll be cutting it. Sometimes maybe that's what you want, but for this project I didn't want that. And so when you are done with the distance node, you create the edge detect node and then you plug it into it. And for the edge detect, I'll say work with edge width and roundness, granted depending on how sharp you want your rocks to be or how rounded you want them to be. But for the taller ones, I don't touch it because it gives you this gray shape in here, which sometimes you might want because you want your rocks to go like this or something. But for this one, I didn't want that. But for the nodes, experiment with them, try and see what they do if you don't fully understand what they are doing, what they do. But for this video, I assume you know how Substance Designer works and you just want to know what nodes are used for this specific project. So let's go. I don't want to waste too much time on this. After that, basically we've gotten the rock shapes, and from here on out, what we do is just create more distortion in the shapes and go to the end. So I'll just go quickly to the end. Because if you've created multiple materials in Substance, at this point is basically how you create your distortion in your shapes. So I start with a warp node with a very low intensity, because if you go too high, you tend to break your shapes. Sometimes you want that effect, sometimes you don't. The reason mine is not changing that much in the reference is because I've done something in the end to clamp it down. But I use a Clouds 2 node most of the time for my warps. But every noise gives you different effects when you warp with it. So and as I said earlier, you gotta experiment with Substance, and then you know what node feels right at a point. And I move on. After the warp node, I move on with a blur. This blur, I won't say it's 100% useful, but I did it because I wanted to get rid of these sharp, like how sharp the edges were. But it was because at this point I felt like I didn't like it, but it's not necessary. There's some nodes that I'll admit they are not necessary. I'll say this blur might not be necessary if you do not want it, because in the end we bevel over here. But basically, another reason I use the blur is because I wanted the bevel to be to not have these sharp edges here, and also it helps the bevel out a little bit. So I blended that with the Perlin noise, and since this is the new Perlin noises where it's not like Perlin noise 1, 2, and 3. I'm in Zoom. This is my settings that I used. I tweaked down until I got what I felt was right. Now I use the Perlin noise to give the rocks the wobbly shapes, basically, because in the warp node this is how it look, but as soon as I use the Perlin noise, it breaks it apart with the edges. What you do is basically plug in the Perlin noise to the background, and then you put on add sub, and it works. Like if I took the scale of the Perlin noise, you see the shapes of the rocks changing. Like as you can see right here. And you can expose this parameter if you want, but I think for this shape, since it's not just one rock, it's multiple rocks, it's not very strong. But if it was like one rock, it will work more. Oh, actually, wait, this blur node is actually useful. I remember now, because in order for this system to work, the add sub, you need a gradient on the edges, because that's where the Perlin noise would affect. Yeah, that's why. Sorry about that. See, sometimes I forget. And also one more thing, there's some nodes here that I created by connecting the distance node again, so we'll get there. So after that I bevel the shape just to get more of a height on it. So basically over here we get this, and I just beveled it to get more of a height. With bevel, be careful. As you can see, my distance is on 0.01. If I go too high, I start blending the shapes together. Sometimes you want this effect, and that's good. But for, as I said, for this project, I didn't want this effect. So, and this is on 0.04. And you can leave it on angular or rounded, depending on what you want. Mine won't change much because I've done so much in the future. And yeah, I think for this bevel node, yeah, I didn't do the fancy bevel because I think I showed in the other video another way of using the bevel node to get your gradation. And then I plugged it in here. Basically, I do this to get different height variation on the rocks. On this one, I might have gone too much with it because the color ranges are too close together, in my opinion. But what I do is I put the distance, this node, the distance node, that I plug into the levels, and I blend it with this right here, which would give, I use a multiply. And if I tweak this, I guess it's not doing much. Wait, am I updating the node? Because sometimes if you're not updating the right node, I guess it's not that much when I took unless I use a higher one, I guess. Yeah, if I go this way, I get like a uniform color, and I don't want that. So I want more variation in my colors, and which also gives you different heights. Because if you look over here, you can see my rocks. Like some of them have more height than the other. Obviously, from this side, they don't look right because it's a normal map. So yeah, you don't, a step like this, I would say you can ignore if you don't want height variation in your rocks. But I usually do it because when I'm doing like a brick wall or something, usually add a gradient. But since we created this one through a tile sampler, it's harder to get gradients on the shapes. Although there's you can use a flat fill, but I wanted to avoid using flat fill because flat fill doesn't work in some engines, Unity. Also, let's move on. I need to be quicker a little bit. So as I said earlier, from here on out is just me warping shapes. So after I do this right here, oh, okay, for this one I have a mask in here. If you go up here, you see I have a mask system here. Basically, for my mask system, I took this node and I plugged it into a levels node to get back some of the color in it, because I went very dark since I took the global opacity back here. So I wanted to get some of the color in it. So I just use the levels. So I take the levels and I plug it into the histogram scan. And I put a histogram scan on 0.48. You can tweak it anywhere you want. But if you put a histogram scan on 0.5, you get exactly the same value range. But then that's when the contrast node comes in. And then you get more contrast. So I get darker values and lighter values. Basically, contrast does what contrast says it does. And I created multiple histogram scans to use for different scenarios. But for this one, I use this mask right here. Basically, how a mask works is that your blacks will be your foreground and your white will be the background. So if something is white in the mask, it will be the background. And I think if it's black, it will be the foreground. I might be flipping it, but you can test it out to see. And before we go on, let's talk about this mask system that I created right here. So for the mask system, I have multiple histogram scans, as you can see. And the reason I have this blur in here is because when you plug, I blended the mask with this node right here. That's because I wanted this color variation to be on the rocks like this. But as you can see, this one doesn't have the edge, the edge distance in between it. So I blended it with the edge distance that I got from here, which we'll get back into how I got it. But the issue is that since this one doesn't have the same edge width, if you zoom in, you see that the edges are cutting in a little bit, and in the material it will actually, like, give you a hard edge. But if you use a blur, it will blur it out and you won't see it, like you won't see that cut that is supposed to be there. It's basically me getting this effect down here, but in a different way, basically. But this effect down here didn't have the issue with the edges cutting into it. So I think you can use this system here as your mask. But I remember when I was creating this material, I created this effect like after I was done, I came back to it and I did this and it worked out. So I did a lot of experimentation, so that there might be better ways to do some of the stuff I worked on. Basically, I just repeated the same system when I did it here, because I created a different histogram scan, and I put a couple of I inverted the grayscale just to get more variation, because it will be the same to this one. So I just inverted it just so that I can reverse the variation, and I plugged it into this with the same node to get the edge width, and then added it with this to get a color variation, just to be a little bit lighter and not so drastic. You can use this one if you want to use this effect. You can use this effect if you want to use this effect. So basically I have 3 masks, but I have more than that because I have some that are like going all the way down here, and yeah, I have multiple masks. Masks are where are how you get your variations most of the time. But yeah, let's move on down here. So yeah, after we get a blend, we put a slow blur, samples on 32, very low intensity, but this is how we get our edge damages. I took a clouds too, increase the scale a little bit, and blurred it out just to reduce the effect, because when you use a slow blur with the clouds too, your edges get really damaged. And as I said, it depends on the effect you want. Plugged into it, and I think I put histogram scan just to get some. I think this is why I put that switch. Yeah, this is a switch right here. This histogram scan right now is doing nothing, but the position is exposed. When you expose a parameter, you won't see it on the node anymore. You will only see it when you are, like when you double click on your map, and you come to your material editor right here. But this histogram scan, if you want, don't put it here. Basically what it's doing is that on 0.5, since histogram scan gives you the exact value, it gives me the rocks. But as soon as I put it to 0, I mean I put it on 1, no, actually 0, yeah, I was right, 0, it turns black, that which means the rocks won't be there anymore. I think there's a switch node you could use. Yeah, you can use a switch node to basically turn something on and off. But the reason I didn't use a switch node is that I wanted the rocks to, like, in case you don't want 100% of the rocks gone, because if you use a switch node, you get a constant value of 0 and 1. But if you use a histogram, can get a float value where you can blend a little bit and get an effect like this. But granted, I didn't add enough like variation to my rocks to get this, but just because I just wanted to add stuff like that so you can at least blend a little bit before terminating the rocks 100%. So even over here, if we go up a little bit, you'll see like some of the rocks pop out just a little bit through the mud, and it can help you out if you want that. And also if you combine that with, if I had exposed more material and more parameters in the tile sampler, you'll get more variation and stuff. So I just wanted to give whoever I was using, I create my materials assuming somebody else is going to use it aside me. So that's why I do stuff like that, because I'm trying to learn more. I'll say get into the practice of doing that too, like expose more parameters and try and assume that you're going to share your materials with people, and then how would they want to, like if you are downloading material for some stuff share or substance source, what control would you want? And I'll still look into how to expose, because there's some exposing that you gotta do it in a different way, like if you're exposing a transform, but I don't go into that right now. So yeah, basically that's why the histogram scan also used as a switch for blending. So as I said, you can use a switch node or you could use a histogram scan as a switch. I learned that trick from Wes, the algorithmic guy, basically the guy who does the tutorial. I put that into a warp node. You can put this histogram scan at multiple places, but I put it right here because I feel like this is here. Right here is when I ended like the main points, but you can put it a little bit further if you want. I put a warp node, warped it out a little bit, and I use a directional warp. But the issue with directional warp is that it pushes your shapes from their original point, because if you look at it, as you can see, my shapes move a little bit, and that's where the clamp comes in. This right here, as you can see, this node is going almost everywhere. What I do is I take a histogram scan, and this is very important, it has to come after your final, like I'll say your final distortion. So basically I knew this warp node, this directional warp was my final distortion, so this will be my final position of the rocks, of the stones, because I could have gone further with the distortion. So after you put that in, you pull your position up a little bit, and then you get your contrast to get colors to be black and white. And then you basically, I put levels here, you don't put levels there. I try pull levels so that I can tweak later on if I need to do something. And you plug it in, you blend the histogram scan with this, and you get a multiply. I mean, you multiply them together. The reason you do that is because this shape will clamp any edges that are here. Because if you zoom in here, you can see like our edges will be is gradiating, so they'll be blurry a little bit. Yeah, like everything right here. I use the levels to help it out a little bit, but basically if you look at it over here, like they are gradating, I use the levels to just push the values a little bit more. And then, so what we do is that as soon as you do that, you clamp the shape and you get this hard edge. So basically it gives it the effect of it being a hard edge sitting on the surface. If you don't want this, you might remove it, because in my opinion, you can remove this one, because since it's mud, you can have the mud like blending in there. But in my opinion, for this material, if I'll change anything to be how I blended it, I want the mud to go a little bit more on the surface. But that, because I didn't create this material when I was first creating, I didn't plan on using mud. I planned on creating it so that I can put anything in between. But basically right here, I'll say you are done with your large rocks, because you can, since if you are right here, you can put any material in the crevices, where I chose to use mud this time, but you can use any material at this point. Because from here on out is where we branch out to using a bunch of stuff, and then we create grunge. So basically, you can end the video right here if you want to. I'll say thank you for watching. I think I've explained some stuff, but from here on I will be going to the smaller details, and I'll say the other large detail will be the mud. So I guess if you want to stay for the mud, because the mud is just multiple noises blended together in fancy ways, I guess. The mud was very experimental in this project. So for grunge, I just, in my opinion, mess around with the noises, mess around with the grunge nodes, try different variations and see what you can get. You'll not see the effects that much, because of how I created it, because they are micro details. It's not they're like what is supposed to take the attention of, but they add texture to the material. I might have gone too far with the masking. That's why some of the rocks look smooth and some don't. That's because I wanted to mask it so they don't all have the same micro detail. But basically, I usually take two grunge nodes and I blend them together and tweak the opacity or whatever, depending on how you blended them. And I just keep going. Usually at this point I'm plugging it into the material multiple times to see how it looks and whether I like it or not. And usually after I create like a fancy grunge, I plug levels at the end just so I can tweak the values if I need to, and I don't come all the way back there. So for this grunge noise, I used map 3 and 5, and I rotated the 5 with the transform 2D. You just put 2D and then rotate 90 degrees. That's because I wanted it to be going in the opposite direction. I don't want them both to be going vertical. I mean, not opposite, but horizontal. Blended them, got this noise. Usually, most of the time, I don't use the same grunge system, because sometimes I even forget how I created it. Because as soon as I get to grunge phase, I just start plugging in random grunges. But usually, if you know the notes, you know what you feel like using. This is the final effect we get, and then we add it to the shape. And you won't see it on all the rocks here. Yeah, that's because I used a mask, and my mask node is coming from here. So basically, as I said, the black parts, I think the black parts are not affected by the grunge, and then the lighter parts, the color variation, the lighter a color is will be affected more by the grunge, and then the darker it is affected less. And if it goes 100% black, then it's not affected at all. That's why one reason I use a mask, because if I unplug the mask from that grunge, let's find the grunge. If I unplug the mask from the grunge, you should see it. Yeah, I hope you guys saw its update. I mean, one case of the textures are not very different. It basically puts the grunge on everything. You can do that if you want. I just was testing our masking system, because I was doing the tutorial to show like the masking system too. Like I was explaining a lot of stuff in that tutorial. And as you can see, I'm using this as the final node. So we'll be pulling this guy out a little bit more, and this guy. And so basically I just created a lot of granges. Like this is the first grange. I created another grange. I took a grange map 13 with the map 4, blended them together, and I did a similar thing in levels, plug it in. By this time yep, I use the same add linear, pull the opacity down. You can tweak the opacity if you want to see how the effects are, but I think for this one it's not that much because I already added stuff on top. But yeah, did a similar thing, put a mask in, kept going, and I put a cells as for this one I use the cells as the cracks. Usually if the cracks are like very important to the shape, then I created myself similar way that I created the large rocks. But if the cells, I mean if the cracks are not important, then I use the cells. So I use the cells too, and I increase the size a little bit more, and I use a slow blur. We use one of my noises down here because you know it's good to reuse a noise instead of creating a whole new node. Blur it up a little bit, put levels. I use these levels to invert it and also to tweak the effect. Plugged it in here with the subtract. Subtract takes the whites out of the shape, so basically subtracted it, and I use the mask so that the cracks don't go everywhere. So if I took the opacity, you see the cracks will pop out more, because I remember these ones were very strong. If I could find where the cracks were too, unless I tweaked it so much that I lost some of the effects. I think this was, oh yeah, actually I think this was one of the ones that it looks better in 4K because I made it so micro, and also at this point we have like the albedo and stuff on there. But yeah, at this point you can just create it the way you want to, but you can see in the height I'm adding the color, and also it might be, oh, it's also because my levels are kind of it's one reason I added levels, because you can use levels also like tweak how your shapes will be blended. But as you can see, the cracks are popping up a little bit. It's one reason I added levels at the end of a noise map, because I can keep on using levels to tweak. So I'm not saving this, and as you can see, the cracks are not on every single thing. In my opinion, I should have added more masks so that, like, you know, I have more variation with the masking. But I felt restricted with this masking system that I did because of how I was relying heavily on the distance node. But you can also create like fancy masks with using uniform blur or using a histogram scan with the noise. Like, can you use pellet noise and use a histogram scan and create a random mask where it goes in random places, but that depends on the noises you're looking for. But yeah, I digress. But basically, yeah, that's what I did. And usually after I create all my granges, I put one final node where it's a fractal sound base. You use this to get very like soft noise, and then I blend it in as a multiply, and it gives everything just a soft texture. So if like there's any smooth surface that I missed with my granges somehow, it gives it that just that soft texture, and you can make it more by just tweaking the roughness. And as you can see how like it gets very noisy. If you want that effect, you can do that. It's one reason I love the fractal sound base node. And so yeah, basically now we have a final node. So this node will be the grange final, and this node will be like the non-grange final, basically. And I guess yeah, we are done. I've shown you the masks, and we are done with the major parts. So let's go to the mod. I didn't track how long this video is taking, so I just hope it's not. I don't think it will be 2 hours long like the other one. Okay, let's see. I think I should get into the mod, because the mod also so important, even though it was very experimental. So I'm going to pull some stuff down. For the mod, I might be all over the place because I was really experimenting over here. But in my opinion, you can ignore like all these chunks over here if you want to, and start from here. So let's frame everything so that we can see it properly. Actually, let me hide the rocks so that you guys can see the mod effect. So yeah. Okay, as I said, you could ignore all this part and start from here. Basically, I took a Gaussian noise. Gaussian noise is like a better version of the Pellet noise, but with more, like basically you don't. It's basically the Pellet noise, but you don't have to tweak the levels. In my opinion, it's basically what the Pellet noise zoom used to be, I think. Yeah. And you know, I use a safe transform. By the way, this is very important. When I was creating this mod, I used a transform node at first because it ruined the tiling, like it broke the tiling. So I use a safe transform. So I use a safe transform, and this is something a trick I learned from somebody. I'm sorry I can't give credit to the person because I didn't know who it was, because usually I download random materials and study them. And just like way back I studied the material. Basically he takes two noises and makes one larger and one smaller, and then he blends them on top of each other with a copy and puts them 0.5, and so the blend, so it gives it like more of a variation. It basically makes the noise a better version of itself. So let's take a pellet noise and you blend it with a smaller pellet noise or a larger pellet noise. Usually I use a transform to make it smaller, and then it just adds more to the noise. And so, you know, I did that, and I took a plasma warp. I mean a plasma, not a plasma warp, a plasma. And I slow blurred the plasma with this node that we created right here, and you basically get this like chunky shape thing. I learned this from somebody. Like I remember the system, but I wasn't 100%. I blurred it just to lose the sharpness in the shapes, because it starts looking like more like rocks or something over here. And with the mod, by the way, you use a lot of blurs, because you know mod is very soft but heavy. So I used the same system, safe transform, made it smaller, and then I blended them together. I check for this one, I might go a little bit higher, like 0.5, just to, you know, get it. Did it again, safe transform, blended it again, and then, you know, it just gives me this nice noisiness. And then we get this. This could be your mod if you want, like right here. In my opinion, this could be your mod right here, but actually it will be this, but with the levels node instead of a blend. But this was the first mod I created before I went back. This is how I created it in the tutorial, because I was experimenting in the tutorial. How I created, I began with a pellet noise. I might be all over the place because I really experimented on it also. Yes, stay with me. I began with a pellet noise. Warped it with the fractal sum base. Basically got this weird shape. Basically, the goal here was that I was trying to get a very warped noise as my mod. So I took a gradient linear, took the tiling, transformed it. I warped it with the pellet noise I already had just to break the edges, and I safe transformed it. This part was where I made my first mistake. I used a transform node, ruined the time. But if I use a safe transform, it basically just tiles nicely when you rotate. You press spacebar on the 2D just to see your tiling, by the way. Blended them together, and basically I get this shape where you'll see it gets like wobbly. In my opinion, I should have warped this one too. So like I should have done this, Control D, then use this one, then, you know, use this one here. Yeah, I should have done this actually, just to, you know, not have straight lines. So basically it just gives me different this thing. And I blurred it a little bit. As I said, with the mod you want them to blend. I warped it again, and this warp I like the way it came out. Like, it's a very cool looking height map in my opinion. It looks like waves and stuff. But I just used the same pellet noise. I was experimenting here, so I kind of was like happy with some of the results I was getting. And I used a blend. I blended with the warp that we got from here. But I don't think this blend was important, because I did some stuff that I know are not important. But I think this, yeah, I guess. I mean, let's see the difference. Aside from color difference, I can't see, like, I guess that it added like some micro stuff to it. Let's pull this one back a little bit. Oops. Select it properly. Okay. Oops. Let's put this one. Okay. So we get a blend, and I created a plasma. I could have reused. Actually, no, this was a smaller plasma, so yeah, it doesn't matter. I inverted the grayscale. I don't think the plasma has an invert. Yeah, the plasma didn't have an invert. That's why it's an invert grayscale. I inverted a grayscale, and I used it as a warp to break up the shape. So basically, this is the shape we have, and I warped it some more, and I warped it 2 times. But I think I changed something about it. What did I change about it? Because usually when I warped a shape 2 times, one is different from the other. Okay, one. Huh, they're the same. Why did I do that? Usually when I warp, I make one different and I blend it together, but I guess I mixed up. Oh wait, oh okay, I see now. This was the transformed one. So oh okay, I could have just deleted this node and instead of plugged this one. So I transformed it again. But whoops. As you can see, as soon as I transform, I break tiling. That's why I use save transform. But over here I use transform 2D because it didn't break the tiling. I bled it and I bled both of them and I blended them together. So basically I did similar thing I did at the beginning but more noisy, and then I blended them together. With the add, you could increase it a little bit more, but yep. And I put a Gaussian noise, use the levels to get the values a little bit more darker, and I use this Gaussian noise to get some depth in there, like basically to get some low points in the mod where I could have gone a little bit more severe with it, like this, just to get some variation in the height, so that it's not like all similar. So basically, these dark spots will be lower in the height, and then I put a BMW spots. It's good for adding like the the noise texture. I blended it again, multiplied it. If I go too high, it gets very noisy. Over like stuff like this, you can expose. Oh, well, what did I do? Okay, so up here I just basically did pellet noise. Yeah, this one was also experimental, but I wanted to get like hard edges on the shape, so because I didn't want everything to be soft, I wanted some stuff to be a little bit harder. So I took pellet noise and slow bled it with itself. Basically, when you do that, you get this effect. And I put a histogram scan to get some variation. I guess this is a rogue node. Oh yeah, I was showing something, that's why. I bled it, slow bled grayscale with a cloud noise. You might try using a cloud noise from down here, but sometimes you don't want to like zoom out and go back and find your noises, so that's why I was a little bit lazy here. Edge detected it, yeah, that's why that node was there. And I just beveled the edge detect, but I just use smoothness, I didn't use distance. And I use BMW spots to add the noise effect on the bled version. And then I use histogram scan to get the values a little bit closer to each other, so they blend it a little bit more. And yeah, I just used it to create a fancy noise on top of my mod, and then yeah, it gives me this large shapes on the soft shapes. And I created a dirt, did the system where you transform and then you blend it into each other, and then use it to get something nice. Blended it, and this was the final for the mod. Over here, this is going to a mask, so I mean this is going to create a mask. And let's quickly go over the pebbles. Pebbles, this was a very, I'll say it's not the best way to create pebbles, but the pebbles were not important, so I didn't want to use a lot of time on them, so I just check polygon 2, use paraboloid. I think I'd use a paraboloid, right? Yeah, actually no, oh, this polygon 2, I forgot. Yeah, it's just polygon 2 with a bunch of sides tiling. The reason I use polygon 2 is because I get a gradient tweak, but you can use a shape if you want. I put levels on it to reduce the gradation. Use the pellet noise with the add subsystem I was talking about to warp the edges. Slow blur grayscale there. Did a bunch of noises, like a bunch of warps. And slow blurs again, and I clamped it the same way I did for the rocks, and then basically we get this shape. Although I had this particle effect going on here, that was because of how I did the slow blur. I was a little bit lazy on this pebbles because I knew they're not important to the shapes. I could have actually used this one. I should have actually slow blurred this. Histogram scan this one. Increase the position. There we go. And then use this one as a shape instead. Yeah. So I guess that's one way I could have changed my pebbles up. But the height is not that strong on this one because I didn't want the pebbles to be important. I won't even call these pebbles. I'll call them more for fancy noise, I guess. I plugged into a tile generator. And I just tiled it. And basically, if you do it like this, it to be everywhere. The way we get a pebbles to not be everywhere is I put a histogram range. I just put a histogram range at the end just so I can tweak the height difference if I want to. But basically, I blended the pebbles with the mud. I put it on a copy and I just put on 0.5 so that the pebbles don't take over. But the important thing was I used a mask because if I didn't use a mask, the pebbles would be everywhere. This one looks like this because of how I created this system. Right. I pull all the way here though. I should put it back. Can't select it. Oh, because I broke it. Okay, there we go. For the mud mask, I just took a histogram scan, didn't go too high with it, but turned up the contrast and just got some random mask out of it. It's one way to get like a nice random mask, and I used it as this thing so that pebbles don't go everywhere. And yeah, so basically this will be like the final mod that will be plugging into everything. I call this part final blends because I did a couple of blends in here before I went out. So let's say I just took a Gaussian noise. Oh, I think I used this to get a more height difference in the shapes after I added the pebbles. I used a histogram range, which might have broken my height difference. You don't have to put histogram range if you want. Actually, I think I might have used too many histogram ranges, but yeah. Because there's some parts where you can replace a histogram range with the levels, and if you can do that, don't do that. And I think, yeah, I pull. Okay, why did I create this shape? Let's see, blend with this one. Oh, okay, I know why. I took the mask blend and I blended it with this shape, with this histogram scan right here, which seems to be on. Why is it off? Oh, I turned off the rocks, that's why. Yeah, I forgot I switched off the rocks. Let's turn the rocks back on. I clamped it at 0.5, so I know I can't go above that. Okay, okay, so yeah. Okay, so that was why I wasn't seeing the effect that it was making. Basically, I did that to blend the edges, so some of the white edges will be going into each other. I could have done it a little bit more, and also I wanted the mud to be to come up. Although I didn't do it properly, I didn't like use this one properly, but this was the effect I was going for. And histogram scanned it. Another histogram scan that I might say is not important, but this was to create a shape for the color mask. Oh wow. So that the color can blend a little bit more. Over here it's all over the place, so it will be a little bit hard for me to even explain, even though I created it. Okay, for this one I did the blend. Oh, actually I guess let's go down here. um these actually, yeah, everything is important. I was trying to see if anything was not important so that I could skip on, but yeah, the color, final blends, and AO roughness are very important. So let's do the final blends first. Yeah, okay, so we blend. Basically you create this blend right here just so I can use it as a mask for your colors. But this is something I created after like I was working with the colors and I realized I needed something like this. But basically after we connect all these nodes right here, it's time to add a mod to the shapes. So basically you put the blend in there. I mean, you blend them together with the add, basically, so that will be, everybody will be 50-50. I put on 0.5 and I blended it with this right here. Basically what I did was I took the final shape that we had right here, blended it in with the grunge version of it. You could use the grunge version, but the reason I blended it in with the grunge version was to reduce the grunge itself. But before I did that, I added a pale noise. It's just me trying to get variation on the heights of the rocks so that they have this like dips and highs. You might not see them that much, but I can see like this rock right here has like a little dip in it. And yeah, I blend them together with the multiply. It basically reduces the value range. So yeah, and I use that to create a AO roughness part. But yeah, I think I might have gone over. I might have flipped and gone back to the AO roughness. But yeah, trying to find what else to. Yeah, okay. So I use that to create the AO roughness. I use that to start the AO roughness, but it also blends into the final blend. So we go with blend, histogram ranger, and I blend it to I blend them again together to get some of the the color range difference. This was me just trying to get more range in between the colors, so we get more of the whites back. And then I put a levels at the end just so I can tweak it later. So yeah, as you can see, this is it. I did this because I wanted more of a cleaner height, so when I'm blending I don't lose some of the stones to the mud, because if I didn't do the levels, some of the stones will go too deep into the mud. If you want that effect, you can. I kind of like did that a little bit here so that some of them will be covered by the mud a little bit, but I didn't go too far with it. That's one thing I would change if I were to go back. But yeah, like over here is where the split. This one goes up and this one goes down. So down here is where I get a roughness, and then up there is where I blend the noise. I mean the heights. You can use a height blend too if you want. But yeah, I Blur HQ'd it. Blur HQ is just a more expensive version of Blur, but it gives you a better blur system. That's the most simplest explanation I can think of right now. Histogram range that Blur HQ, and I blended them with a mod. Basically, as I said, 50-50, and then I use this as the mask so that some of the mud will go, like as you can see, there's that little like right here to go in there. But if I wanted, I could use this as a mask, but then it's very like sharp. But that's because in my mask is why I was saying I didn't do the mask properly was because I didn't get the variation that I wanted properly, because as you can see, like the shapes, it's white, but then there's an off-white here, so it wasn't blending properly. So I could have gone further with the color right here, then gotten a better mask, I guess. But yeah, I think I did a lot of tweaking over here and I wasn't sure about my stuff, but there's some stuff I'll change when I go back. So basically we did this, and what it did was that it pulled the mud on like almost everything, and even the rocks were covered too. At this point I was working only height, so I didn't have albedo. Over here the albedo is like distracting, so you might see it differently, like how from how I was seeing it when I was working with it. So yeah, so after I did that, I replugged this in. I basically re-blended them together again, but this time I put a mask from here. The reason I did that was because as you can see, some of the rocks don't have the mud like noise on them, and some do. That was the reason I re-blended them. And I think I also did, yeah, after I did that, I blended them together again, but this time I put a reverse version of this right here, an inverted version. If you don't want to use the inverted node, you can literally just put this at the top and put this at the bottom instead, so that you don't have to use the inverted. But I knew I was using invert again, that's why I didn't mind using it right here. So basically the reason I did that was because I wanted the mod to know its place. Basically this was me telling the mod that the crevices was where it has to be, and the rest was just, you know, a little bit. So I guess even over here I could have used this mask instead, but yeah, that's because I've done the albedo, as I said, so the effects will look different. But yeah, but this was me like placing the mud in the crevices. And I think I add some stuff. Oh, this one I just went back to the color variation that I had back here, put it in the levels, and then plugged it back in, because at this point we lost some stuff, so I just plugged it back in. And the reason the edges are like that is because I might, yeah, okay, that's why I use the shadows. I use a mask, a mask from here, and I put it in here. The mask was created a similar way, but with I put levels at the end instead. Now I multiply them, then you know, opacity and everything, and I use this as my final height. Plugged it into the normal map, and also plugged it into a histogram counter, and then put it as the height. It looks like I use a shadow node, but I can't find where I used it, because a shadow node is what gives you this effect right here. I think I might have used this somewhere, but I can't remember. I put it. Interesting. So basically, yeah, that was, I mean, I went ahead and created the albedo after the. So for the albedo, I just basically the albedo, think about it like how you were creating your shapes, but instead of using the shapes, you're using color. I could have used uniform color here, but I was testing out the colors. So instead of using the gradient map, I can use uniform color. It's less expensive. I just took 2 colors, and I used this as a mask, so the colors will affect differently. So if I flip it, oops, you see I flip the colors. So basically, yeah, that's why I use that as a mask. It's basically, and I just took green because I wanted some greens in there, put another mask in there, which was from here. And this is pebbles. The pebbles itself, wanted them to have their own colors, so you know, I put it in there, but then I put a mask in so that the pebbles know their place again. And sharpened it. The sharpen node is very important here, because you kind of lose when you're blending colors on top of itself and stuff. You start losing some stuff. So I just put a sharpen node usually in my gradient maps. And yeah, I just use the mask system, plugged it into a gradient map. Over here is very important. The more variation you have in your colors here, this mask will read it, and then we'll put the rocks as different colors. I think my color variation wasn't very strong over here, but I knew I wanted them to be different, so I put HSL in there. HSL is just hue saturation lightness. I tweaked the saturation a little bit just to push the color variation a little bit more. I put a gradient map. Why did I put this gradient map here? Well, I put it here just so I can blend a little bit. Yeah, because I did a blend and I multiplied it on top of it. So basically we have this, and now we have this. So you know, yeah, so I just took the pebbles, took this final color, added it to the pebbles, and I used a mask also again. I use a mask. I think I use this one instead. Yeah, I use this one, although I won't say it was necessary here. And I also put another blend. I blended again over here with this, just to get some of my colors back, because we, as you can see over here, we lost the colors. So I blend again to get some of my colors back, but I use a mask again. So I kind of, oh, actually I remember this one. I went back and tweaked some stuff. So this blend over here actually ended up being me getting this like little, like guys can see, if you zoom in, you see like this little dead patches that go on the rocks, the stones. And yeah, and I blend again, but with the beveled version of this, because I was trying to blend the edges in a little bit more. Although I still, the reason I have these hard edges in there is because it's from the height, I know. And yeah, this was the final. For the mask, I took the histogram range of this one. I mean, a histogram scan of this, because I was going to push the values a bit more. Inverted the grayscale, and I blur HQ'd it, and I plugged in here. The reason I dogged them is because, you know, I didn't want them to be to take space, because I wasn't reusing them anywhere. That's why I plugged that into my final color. And yeah, the color I could have gone a little bit harder on it, but yeah, I just got it. And also, I think usually you can put HSL right here. Like usually I put HSL at the end of my color just to color correct a little bit, so you can make it lighter or you can make it darker. But because I combine both colors, I'm making everything darker. So if you want to make only one of them darker, then you put HSL, which I did over here. I put it back here, so I can make this one darker without affecting the rocks too much. And yeah. Also, if you are tweaking colors, if you are working colors, think about the PBL rule, so that you don't ruin how the light in an engine. So for AO roughness, basically we've covered the first part where we did a branch. I also took this, plugged a HBAO, and for the AO I wanted to blend two different AOs, so I was experimenting a little bit. As I said, think about it as if you're creating that shape again. So I just took the HBAO level, used the levels to, you know, just took the colors a little bit, and I blended it in with a HBAO, but with a very dark value range. So basically this is the final effect. So we have this and we have this, but that's why I plug in the mask. So the mask will make some of them have the top HBAO and some of them have the bottom one, and it's left on copy. So, you know, is it there or then or not there? And I just pull this one back in as a mask to try and cut some of the shapes out. Now this was me just playing around with them different value ranges, and yeah. I'm trying to see if there's any important thing I took out here. This was the mod. Yeah, for the mod I just pulled down the histogram range, used the levels, and I plugged it back into the HBAO. Yeah, and I kind of blended it in a little bit, but I used a mask. I used this as the mask. That was because I wanted to push some of the shapes in a different direction, and I think that's what. Oh no, this was for the roughness actually. I remember. Oh yeah, that's because I made the rocks not glossy, but I wanted the mud to the wetness from the mud to affect the rocks. And this is how I created it. I created this system right here. So over here, the rocks, some of them are not glossy, and I just blend it with the mud, but with this as a mask, and then it basically gives me a little bit of variation. So there's still some unglossy parts of the rocks, I'll say, but I guess some of the mats, but you don't see it properly. But it's just that I know it's there. Like over here, as you can see, like the light is shining over here, but over here is very, like, it's not so glossy. It just adds a little variation to your roughness, in my opinion. Because roughness, if you have like one general roughness where it's just gray or white or black, or it's not interesting in my opinion. So I like adding variation to the roughness. It's one reason I also did the AOs in a similar way. So basically what I was looking over here was the roughness, not the AO. My fault. But basically I did the AO in a similar way, where I took the ambient occlusion, but this time I took it from the height. I mean close to the height. And yeah, I blended in two different things. Oh, this is where the shadow came from. Okay. Put the levels right here. Because this one I took this levels from back here, which is very clean and doesn't have this distortion in it. And yeah, basically I just got this shape. I blended in with the mask so that it's similar to what I did with the roughness. If anything, I can put levels in here again, because since I'm plugging in this levels to another level, to multiple, I can put levels in here. so I can change how it specifically affects this one. And yeah, I plugged it into the AO, and I think that covers most of it. I know this was a breakdown, so it was quite quick, and as I said earlier, this was me assuming you had at least an intermediate knowledge on Substance. And with most materials that you create, you can change a lot of things. Like if anything, I'll make the pebbles stronger, because I ended up making them look like noises in the end, and change my idea of them being pebbles. And also I'll take away this hard edges that I put in between the where the mud and the rocks meet, and I'd rather blend them in. And yep, basically you could say I created two materials, but the main point was to create a cobblestones, and I created multiple variations. And so that'll be it for this one, and I'll leave a link to the other one where I go more into details, but I didn't finish the material in that one. And this was for more people, and more for people who wanted a general idea of how to create this specific one. And also, I hope you learn to work with different nodes to get different stuff, because even though I use this system to create this specific material, you can use it to create a different material. Like if you come back here, let's say you come here and then you invert it, you can get a whole different system. Like you can change everything, and you get like this. This might seem interesting to somebody, but yeah, like even yep. And I hope this just gives people an idea of what you can do. So I say, keep working with Substance, keep seeing what you can do with it, what you can achieve. And thanks for watching, and thanks for supporting. Please subscribe, hit the notification button if you want to. If there's any feedback you have, definitely leave it in the comments. I'll read it, and I'll try and produce more. So keep working and have a great one.